Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Secrets of the Viz. Starting this month, we're going to start a Christmas special diving into all the IronViz entries. So I have Lindsay today to join me to give you guys a little glimpse on what IronViz used to be and how it has evolved over the years. So over to you, Lindsay, to give an intro. I think everyone should know you by this time. You're like 5-time visionary, and this year you'll probably head into the Hall of Fame.
So thanks, Lewis. It's great to be here. Yeah, so I've been in the Tableau community for quite some time now. This is my 10th year, which no Andy Kriebel, but 10 years feels like a long time. So that's pretty cool. And I love being a part of it and seeing things like IronViz change over the years and being a part of the whole what was and what is now and seeing the whole community evolve and grow significantly over those years. Quick background, I work in healthcare for an organization called Health Data Viz, which was recently acquired by Sellers Dorsey. And exclusively, we work with healthcare organizations as our client and design and develop dashboards to help improve their utilization of the data that they collect. And healthcare organizations collect a lot of data on people that relates to our health.
And I mean, even my iWatch collects a lot of data on me. So
yeah, right.
So speaking of IronViz, I've noticed the entries hit a skyrocket high over 300 in 2020, and I'm sure that has to do a lot with post-COVID. Everyone was stuck home, everyone had a little bit more time to work on IronViz and stuff like that. And over the years, it has normalized back to what it was, about 100-ish, 200. So maybe just give us a little background of what IronViz used to be.
Yeah, it's interesting you say about the flux of submissions, and I have a couple theories on that. So I think IronViz has been going on since 2012. Might have been the first one. The first one I ever saw live was 2015 in Vegas, which was really cool at the time when I saw it all in a big arena. But at that time, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I see these three individuals like competing on stage. By 2018, I participated for the first time. I'm not sure how many prior years this was the case, but there were 3 qualifier rounds, which I think now people would be like, what? So back in 2018, they had 3 qualifier rounds. That year, it was books and literature, health and wellness was the second one, and then water. So they would have run a good chunk of the year. And I think there was a couple of things that were good and bad about that. Obviously, there's 3 of them. So some people felt compelled to submit in all 3. Obviously, that helps your chances. So I guess that's a pro. The other thing is, in my opinion, the good thing is that you weren't stuck to one time of the year, because if May was a better time for me to participate, I could participate in that one. Like October for me is hard. It's the end of the year. It's super busy. My kids just went back to school. It's like sports season for whatever. And it's just very hard to find the time in October. So when they did 3 of them, it was nice to be able to pick when. It was also which feeder I liked more. I'm actually not sure that we got more participants back then because the community pool is probably smaller, but it was interesting. The other thing that was different in both 2018 and 2019, the judges were not community judges. I think they have 10 judges for each qualifier round, but they were people from all over the data visualization community at large. They may have been people that were relatively well known, but were not necessarily even use Tableau potentially, and they certainly weren't always knowing the community. So I think there was a lot of concern that the folks who were judging didn't understand the tool as well as maybe someone who was more in the know. And so 2019 was the last year that they had 3 qualifiers, and then 2020 during COVID, it just became 1. So I don't know if the reason was COVID or if there were other reasons for changing it, but we'll never know. Long story short, it did change in 2020 when it moved to community judges for the qualifier round. But yeah, I do think had some benefit. It also got community members involved in the judging process, being able to give feedback on what worked, what didn't work, and I think knew a little bit more about what was really difficult or not in the visualizations they saw, where I think some external folks wouldn't have known. Like that took a lot of analytical or technical effort to complete.
There's a good point. Probably 2 years back, they started to release the judging criteria, and I thought that was a really good move on their part because people have something tangible to work towards too.
Yeah, you're right. Before we just knew it was analysis and storytelling and design, but it wasn't really clear what parts of those things mattered the most, or even if there were criteria, frankly. To be honest, I mean, we all might have a different opinion or viewpoint on what makes any of those 3 things spectacular or not. So
That's a great point because I think data visualization on its own is pretty subjective to begin with. So if we don't have a proper structure to judge or give points or deduct points from, it makes it really hard to be fair, I would say.
The other thing I know is that as they moved again to being a little more transparent about the judging of IronViz, all the workbooks have to be downloadable. As a judge, you're able to look behind the scenes. And that really helps because oftentimes you can see a visualization, but then find out, for example, maybe so much of it is just images, or whoa, what someone did actually is way more technically complex. So I think that shift has improved the judging criteria in a more advanced way.
I mean, ultimately, this is a Tableau IronViz competition. It's a given that most, or if not all, of the things should be done in Tableau, I guess.
Right. Exactly. So
I'm going to throw you a hard question. How have you found the quality? How has it changed over the years? And which years are your favorite? That's a hard question.
and I'm like, I have to go back. I don't remember. I will say some of it probably depends on the topic too. I think some of the topics lend themselves a little more to people's passions, and that maybe more creativity and or more entries. The year that they did Viz What You Love, I know some people thought that was great. I actually felt that was a year that I didn't find the quality spectacular because it felt so nebulous. I was like, well, that's so hard. You've now given me basically anything to do, and I don't know what to do. There's no guardrails. And I think constraints help us often do a little better at it. This is partially why I liked the years where they did have a couple qualifiers, because you got some really spectacular ones across these different segments. I very vividly remember Simon Beaumont had a really cool one on like water. And I remember Sam Parsons had a really great one, but I never submitted that year because I was like, I don't know if agriculture is really something I can dive into and be like, yes. But for other people, they found like some great story and had some great angles.
I think it's hard because when you have really serious topics like this, you really need to have some level of subject knowledge to be able to do something that does it justice as well.
Yeah, you're right.
Let's talk a little bit on one of your old IronViz entries on the art heist. How do you go about searching for inspiration when you're doing a new viz?
Yeah, I primarily use Dribble and Tableau Public. I share this quite often, and it's just a random old page of things. But you can see I'll search, when I did even this one, Books Left Unread, I found this has nothing related to anything probably related to books. For whatever reason, I found this image and used it for color and font. And that was like it. This one, the year of the meeting, I saw this woman's drawing of herself, and then for whatever reason, this layout or colors got me. And then I made this visualization, created myself in Figma and made some stuff. And that's how this visualization came to be. So I never know necessarily what it's going to captures my attention. The art heist visualization is a lot clearer in terms of the reason this did, because it literally is about art. So that was much more aligned than often I find inspiration. But I will probably start in my search for something related to the topics. And then I'll just grab screenshots and put them all together in a mood board sort of way, and then see what resonates, what do I like the most. In this particular one, aside from the fact that it clearly the example is art, very similarly to a lot of things, I liked the colors. I'm pretty good at design, but on my own, however, I think it's really fun to see, especially with the colors. I don't know that I would have thought I'm going to use this very dark plummy purple in this visualization with yellow, but that's often goes for me.
So usually you start off with like a big title instead of like anchor viz for your visualization.
I guess I do that quite often now that you're pointing it out, which is funny. Creative part first has to come out before I can dig into the data and figure out what's going to come next. But that's probably just a me thing.
Yeah. Some people build like a viz and have the entire design around the viz. But I think for your case, you need a direction for how your end result's going to be like. And I think that whole title piece is guiding that whole creative process as well. So maybe we can scroll down a little bit and just show everyone that really unique combination of 3 different charts. You have the Gantt chart, you have the bee swarm, and the Sankey.
Yep. So I started thinking about the story of this particular, the data behind this, and this was for the qualifier that was related to the arts. And I had recently watched a documentary on the art heist of the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, which was well timed because that was a very cool documentary, and I'm guaranteed there's data out there. So I figured I could just dig a little deeper into that. I started off in thinking of the storytelling of this, starting off with let's orient everybody to art museums in the United States. The fact that this one got stolen or had art stolen, like, why is that even important or not? Who cares if it happens everywhere? And so I simply just started grounding, looking up all the museums that were in the United States that are art museums. But as you mentioned, I started playing around with different visualizations here. And this one in number 2 is looking at the 13 pieces that were stolen. And I looked at when they were approximately created, whoever made the art, and so how old they are, therefore, to some degree, like how valuable they are. And then when Isabella actually purchased these pieces. The interesting thing I think about in terms of data visualization in design is that when we have a need to make the connection between this creation date and the purchase date and kind of show this flow of time, the normal visualizations or charts didn't seem to meet my exact need. Certainly there were ways I could have done this, but it just didn't capture what I was trying to get at. And again, this is before map layers, so I did end up using 3 different charts. As you point out, this first one is just a simple Gantt where I have each of the piece and their year along the timeline. And then I've connected that with this sigmoid curve down to the date that exact piece was purchased with details on the purchasing. And then this is the bee swarm that actually uses a technique from Ken Flerledge that I've actually used a number of times. It just uses 4 or 5 calculations. You can make your bee swarm or splits the difference on the number of items per bucket, bin, in this case, time period.
I also really like the, what do you call it, the Marimekko chart or something. This particularly is really interesting because you actually have it sized by the height and the width.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's one of those charts probably rarely gets used or need to be used. And as much as I'm a proponent of don't use weird charts, just use weird charts by any means. But the Marimekko is one that I find super valuable when there is like a very niche moment that it works. And granted, this one is a little more obscure for the use of it, but this one I did want to give perspective to the craziness of these 2 individuals who stole this art, and that some of these pieces were not small, right? Like this particular piece is 160 centimeters by 128. It was just interesting to see how large these ones are versus this little sketch or what have you. And so this gave me an opportunity to put it into perspective for somebody about all the different pieces of art and then actually show them. I wouldn't expect anyone to know what these art pieces look like. And I thought that would add some valuable insights as well as a visual aspect to it.
I think this has a very niche but relevant purpose in your viz, because if we scroll up and see the timeline of how the 2 thieves actually stole all the art, you have them stealing 6 items from the Dutch room and 6 items from the short gallery. And we scroll down and see the Marimekko chart. You see how big those items are. And we were wondering to yourself, like, how did they actually transport this from room to room and out of the mansion itself?
Right? Like, there's only these 2 people and nobody caught them for the hours that they were there, which is just insane.
Yeah, this is interesting. I'll probably have to catch up on the Netflix film because this gave me a really good overview, but I'm interested to see how they go through the entire process.
And it's still unsolved, so it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think we'll probably have everything we need from this viz. Thank you, Lindsay, for walking us through this amazing viz. I think it's really interesting. And also for that little history lesson behind how IronViz came about and how it's evolved over the years. This year, we have 191 IronViz entries, and there's a lot of good ones. So I'm really excited to see who gets into the top 10 in January. But in the meantime, hopefully everyone will enjoy this little Christmas special where we dive into some of the really cool ones that I've seen. Unfortunately, I can't get all 191. I would love to, but it will probably kill me to get all of them on the show. Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to see who you have on and tuning in to see those and what they say, because that's really cool to hear someone's insights into their own IronViz.
Thank you, Lindsay, for spending time with us. I hope everyone learned something new from this, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thanks.